muy buena comida.
Ven, da la vuelta por ahí por el pastito. Cuidado, cuidado porque pica.
Food is our big story this week. We're paying a lot more for it. A lot of people don't have enough of it, and Washington may be about to make a bad situation worse.
The federal government says 16 million children live in what are called food insecure households. In plain English, they don't have enough to eat.
Elmo didn't know there were so many people who don't have all the food they need. When you don't even know whether you're going to have a next meal or not, that can be pretty hard.
The United States is a bountiful land of plenty. We have grocery stores offering 20 different kinds of cheese and row upon row of every type of apple or lettuce that grows. We throw out more than a quarter of our food supply every single year. There's no excuse for the staggering number of hungry Americans.
As a social worker, I'd worked with a lot of Latino families and had seen a great deal of food insecurity. So people were skipping meals. Sometimes people were not eating at all just in order to feed their children, and people didn't have the same kind of access to food stamps or even to food assistance programs at the food bank.
Latinos come here and for the most part they're marginalized and isolated. They don't know about services that are available. They're very independent. They're going to do it on their own without any help.
Most of them, sometimes they don't want to ask questions in public, so I try not to also, point them out, like, when you put a spotlight in them, because, like, they're embarrassed to talk in front of others, or they just don't want to make sure that people don't know that they're the ones asking for help, or things like that.
The fact that life as an immigrant here in the United States is pretty hard. It's hard to plan when you're worried about what's going to happen next week. Let's just get through this now, and when we're able to create more time, let's plan. I think that's what's happening.
Y por ese motivo yo no he podido traer a mis padres, no he podido mirarlos. Yo me vine, dicen, estamos en este país queriendo salir adelante. Dicen, venimos a trabajar. No pedimos nada al gobierno, no pedimos nada a nadie. Dicen, trabajamos aquí duramente. Dicen, los trabajos pesados. Dice, trabajamos todo lo que quizás otras personas no lo hacen. Dicen, y aún así, pues, ese es el sacrificio de no poder ver a mis padres. Dicen, y pues, por 16 años no los he podido mirar. Y dicen, y pues solamente Dios sabe hasta cuándo.
¿Se lo cayó?
Food insecurity is very much a structural problem, and that income, lack of a livable wage, lack of affordable housing, especially in the area that I'm working in, Santa Barbara County, these are the driving forces for preventing families from accessing an adequate, nutritional, culturally acceptable diet.
And we have tremendous biases, not only socially, but also systemically in the legal system and in the economic systems against immigrants.
So when you have work 3 months and then work no work for 3 months, that's the insecurity, is I don't know where my next meal is coming from because I don't know when I'll be working again. So a lot of families go through these cyclical patterns of food insecurity.
In 1989, I was working with a group of Latinas in a parent education course and approached them about starting a garden. And so that first year in 99, we started with 6 women in a 300 square foot plot. And gradually each year the program grew to separate plots, and we were working with 5 to 7 families. And then 2004, we changed locations and received nonprofit status and worked with 12 families, and it's steadily grown ever since. So in 2008, we were working in 3 community garden sites with 30 families, and now we're working with over 50.
De una amiga de mi esposa, pero que le platicaron que aquí en esta área tenían una organización que tenía pedazos de tierra que prestaban para sembrar. y fue como ella buscó
mira, es la
información
sandía.
y fue como nosotros también nos unimos.
A ver.
Ajá.
¿La corto?
Sí.
Pues mi familia, yo provengo de, ahora sí como dicen, donde cultivan el maíz, cultivan algunas verduras y pues en sí no había trabajado bien así, dicen, pero ahora aquí pues yo tenía una idea porque miraba a mis papás, dicen cómo trabajar la tierra, pues atención. Dicen, y aquí pues yo sé que se puede quitar el pasto, echarle algunas vitaminas para las verduras y todo. Dicen, aquí fue donde aprendí ya realmente a hacer las cosas.
Pues sí hubo técnicas que he aprendido, porque por ejemplo, el saber que la planta tiene que estar en lo alto por el mismo clima que es de aquí, entonces tiene que estar en lo alto para que la planta aproveche los nutrientes, ¿verdad? De la forma el tamaño de los surcos deben ser anchos para que la planta tenga suficiente tierra a su alrededor. Tiene mucha herramienta que uno puede usar, ¿verdad? Que si no estuviera la herramienta, pues uno no sabría esa técnica, cómo usarlas. Ajá. Sí, y pues la verdad si hay alguna técnica nuevas que haya de otras personas que tengan más experiencia, a mí me gustaría aprenderlas. Sí, porque por ejemplo, ahorita estamos aquí, yo estoy aprendiendo a hacer esto y me ha gustado porque así uno se entretiene tiempo, tienes producto y es algo que siempre te va a servir, pues.
The families are able to grow food for themselves, and so they have more access to fresh and nutritious fruits and vegetables that they may not be able to purchase at the grocery store because of the cost.
Pues ahora me vengo a dar cuenta que es más saludable la verdura o todo lo que se planta aquí que sea orgánico. Es mucho mejor para mí. Dicen, y ahora trato que cuando voy a la tienda, trato de comprar las cosas orgánicas, porque para las demás yo no estaba muy informada de que tienen que sprayan, ¿cómo se le dice? Cuando sprayan le echan esas cosas, pesticidas, todas esas cosas. Entonces digo yo, con el tiempo pueda que nos haga daño, ¿verdad? Dicen consumir todo esto y yo ahora ya trato de consumir las cosas orgánicas. Lo más que se pueda.
On the harvest from their gardens, and at the same time, because they're harvesting food from their gardens, they're also able to save money. So, for example, last year I had a number of families who grew enough tomatoes and tomatillos that they were saving $420 just on those two crops alone.
Oh, sí, porque por ejemplo el año pasado. Todo el año no compramos jitomate. Con el jitomate que cosechamos de aquí, tuvimos suficiente para todo el año pasado. Y creo que este año va a ser también que vamos a tener mucho jitomate, mucha verdura y no vamos a comprar. Entonces eso nos ayuda en los gastos de lo que es de alimentos y son menos los gastos ahora ya. Sí.
They are able to preserve their harvest either by canning or freezing or drying, and therefore the harvest extends throughout the year.
One of the pieces of information that we have is when immigrants cross the border coming to this country, in general, they're healthy. They come with that cultural, culinary food identity. They cross the border, and suddenly that's not the only food identity that's out there.
They're getting blood sugar and cholesterol, and apparently they're getting a card with that information to bring to you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we're trying to, it's incredible. Like, it's not going quite as quickly as we hoped because so many people came at the same time. If you want to take a seat, I will bring you also the information that we're giving them, and then maybe I can start sending someone over.
Puerto. I think we understand that that's one of the challenges that they're facing. So when they come back and they start growing their food again and putting that into the balance of things.
De siempre abajo debe ser.
pero 113, un poquito antes. Pero pregúntale al doctor. Okay. Sí, está bien. Gracias.
Difference is that they're eating in balance. They're working, they're walking, they're working in their gardens.
Tenemos jitomate, de diferentes tipos de jitomate. Tenemos tomate verde, que le llamamos, calabazas. Tenemos chiles, del otro lado, chiles y una masa de sandía. Ajá. Y tenemos también unas verduras. ¿Cómo se llaman las verduras? Las que tenemos ahí. Coliflor y lechuga, ¿no? Le dicen repollo. Repollo. Uh-huh. Sí.
Cilantro.
Uh-huh.
Ask families what their benefit of the garden is. One of the first things they say is the harvest. The second thing they always say is it distracts them from their worries. So I think there is a component of mental health where they feel like it's a place to de-stress.
No, pues la mera verdad uno se siente a gusto, se siente conforme, se siente bien, porque por ejemplo cuando yo no era de esta comunidad, en vez uno se siente mal, pues porque es latino y no encuentra a una organización o sociedad donde haya muchos latinos. Incluso, y aquí sí, aquí vine a encontrar que habemos muchos latinos. Ajá, y se siente bien convivir con todos, ¿verdad? Porque por ejemplo cuando no nos conocemos, pues unos andan por un lado, otros por otro lado, entonces no tenemos amistad, pero al llegar aquí uno hace más amistades. Ajá.
Sí, sí, porque dicen toda la vida yo viví con mis padres, dicen, y cuando ellos trabajaban los terrenos que ellos tienen, yo les ayudaba, como quien dice, a mi madre a llevar algunas cosas que necesitaban, digamos, la gente que trabajaba. Y yo cuando vine para acá, pues este pedacito me hace sentir, estoy como estresada en la casa, dicen, y esto me hace sentir, me despejo un poco del estrés que tengo en la casa, dicen, y esto me hace sentir como que si estuviera en mi país, dicen, y me hace sentir bien. Uh-huh.
That's what Huerto has to offer them. Suddenly they reconnect with themselves, with their background, with their cultural world, in a way that many of them, until they got connected with this, they hadn't seen it, forgotten about, or felt that it wasn't relevant in this environment. Suddenly they go, ooh, you know what, it is relevant, it's relevant to me. So I think that's what Huerto's doing. It's creating that relevancy for themselves. It's empowering them. They suddenly go, oh, yeah, I know how to use this stuff. How can I sell it? Oh, how can I make this benefit my family, folks around me? To start talking to each other. So.
Doing that consciousness raising piece, you're not only offering training to families and education to families, but you're also then going to be able to build leaders who are going to be able to eventually help change the food system.
In this country, we have a huge diversity of different folks, of different people in the food system. And so if folks were able to go from the invisible to the visible and were empowered more to make decisions in the food system, there would be more interaction with their cultural heritage, and for all of us to benefit from that greater diversity and perspective on the food system, and bringing in some of the traditions from other cultures that I think really would be exciting.
La verdad sí, incluso muchos me han preguntado de si yo sé si hay algún otro lugar o en este mismo lugar donde estamos, si hay de espacios disponibles para ellos de poder venir a sembrar porque les gusta también lo que nosotros hacemos. Sí. Incluso
The greatest challenge for the garden project at this point is that we have no more space to grow. So I have a long waiting list. I had an unhappy person call me yesterday and told me it was her third year on the waiting list and wondered if she could get in. And we just have no more room to grow, and so are in the process of trying to create another community garden with some other people. And so that really is the biggest challenge, is not having space to expand to serve the need, because there's a huge need.
Sí, sí, ellos siempre quieren venir también para acá. Ajá. Y a veces nos ayudan a quitar también la hierba de los huertos. Y ese se come los jitomates. Se los come cuando está... Todavía no está bueno, papi, no lo arranques todavía. Sí. Oh, mira, una lombriz. Ay. No hagas hoyo ahí, papi. Busca el bosque y córtalo. Busca el bosque, papi. ¿Ok?
Families tell me that their family relationships are better because of the garden, because it's a time that they can depend on being together and enjoy doing something together. It's healthy.
Pues se siente bien. A mí me gusta, pero a mis hijos les gusta más, porque ellos se ensucian y les gusta andar brincando en lo sucio, en la tierra. Entonces, a mí me gusta mucho, pero a mis hijos más.
And I feel like we need to plan to prepare to offer services to folks who come, who may need garden space to grow food for themselves, or it may be beneficial to them to try to start their own business as opposed to working for someone else. So I think that Huerto is positioned well, because we're established now, in order to plan for an influx of immigrants.